Also joining us today is our CEO, Thushera Kawdawatta, and our head of HR, Zeenath Sathar. Induni Amarsen and I will be your moderators for the day. So now I'll hand it over to Zeenath to say a few words.
Thanks, Liara. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. I hope I'm audible, Liara.
Loud and clear.
Great. So thank you, first of all, for giving me this opportunity to make the welcome speech. So those of you who don't know me or not seen me, I am Zeenath, HR leader for ADL. So it's a great pleasure to be here. So thank you for that. Whenever we talk about Women's Day, we get a lot of questions. Last week, one of our colleagues asked me, why do you guys celebrate only the Women's Day? How about we, the men, right? So I think as we celebrate the Women's Day, we also need to understand the context of why we are celebrating the Women's Day, right? So if you really recall, I'm sure most of you know, if you look at the history, somewhere in late 1800 and early 1900, women, especially working women, had a lot of challenges when it comes to their basic health and safety requirements, basic maternity benefits, etc. So there were a lot of groups who came forward and brought in their voice to get what we enjoy today as working women. So it was not only women who voiced it up, it was not only men who voiced it up, it was a collaborative effort of men and women who brought all the benefit that you and I enjoy today. So I want to make it a point that as we celebrate the International Women's Day, it's all about diversity and inclusion. It's not about dividing ourselves or elevate us as a separate species. So with that, let me move on to speak about why it is special today and why all of us on this call and on this webinar are very special. We are very fortunate for a couple of reasons. The first reason is we are part of the Axiata Group. I'm sure Oli will explain further how Axiata as a group shares its vision across the board in accepting and recognizing diversity and inclusion. And secondly, we are part of the so-called knowledge industry, and we respect and recognize talent based on their skills and their knowledge, not anything else. And thirdly, we are part of ADL. I'm sure Thushera will echo what I say. We always see the value that diversity brings in to our culture, the way we do things, the way we do things creatively, how we bring the emotional aspect of it to our decision making. So it all makes ADL a better place. So with that, what have we got for you all today? So today, as you all of you know, the global theme is break the bias. So we thought, let's break the bias into two specific themes and talk about how break the bias can help us embrace diversity and how we can break the bias through self-awareness. So when it comes to embracing diversity, I mean, you all know, all of us come from very different backgrounds, different personalities, etc. So how do we recognize, how do we accept, how do we embrace, and how do we celebrate that differences in us is the first theme. And secondly, while all of us feel that we treat everyone equally, actually we don't. Because all of us come from various backgrounds and cultures, beliefs, ideologies, and that shapes us who we are today. So being aware of these biases, what we call the unconscious biases, right, really helps us in terms of breaking the bias. So the first step, having self-awareness that I have a bias, will help us in our journey towards breaking the bias. So to talk about these themes, we have two prominent speakers with us today. I'm sure they don't need any introduction, but I will leave it to Liara to explain or introduce who they are. So one of my very favorite inspiring two leaders who actually walk the talk and who always believe in diversity and inclusion. So thank you, Oli. Thank you, Thushera, for gracing our occasion. It means a lot to us. And once again, for everyone who's on this call, thank you very much for joining and welcome again. Last but not the least, there is a big committee behind this session and also organizing the rest of the events for this week. So thank you, the organizing committee of men and women who supported us. across Malaysia, Indonesia, and Sri Lanka. Thank you very much. Not only you organized this, you also showed how much of team spirit ADL has. Now, before I end, I always love quotes, inspiring quotes. So something I came across this morning, it goes like this. So yesterday, I was clever. I wanted to change the world. Today, I am wise. I want to change myself. So with that, Liara, over to you.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Zeenath. That was a wonderful, inspiring quote. I will carry that with me. Okay, to start off the session, Ollie, our Chief People Officer of Axiata Group. For those of us who don't know you, could you give us a brief introduction, 3 words about yourself?
3 words. You know, in school, people don't like to get Fs. I'm going to give you 3 Fs about Ollie. I'm very focused, I'm fearless, and I'm fun. Some may disagree, but those are the 3 Fs I'm going to give myself.
I love it. There's nothing better in a woman who's fearless, focused, and fun. All right, Indani, I'm going to hand that over to you to ask the first question. Indani, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about it. I was saying actually it's a very unique answer, Ollie. So I got this question for both of you. So what does International Women's Day means to you? And why do you think we need to celebrate this? Probably we can start with Thushera.
Thank you. Thank you for all the women and all the men who join. And good morning and good afternoon to everyone. Thanks, Ollie, for joining the session. It's an honor to us. Question, Induni, why we should celebrate. And if for that matter, any day, I think we have all the days, about like maybe 300, more than 300 days, we have special events that we are celebrating. Why we do that? We first need to understand that there could be some issues or maybe some concerns. And then we need to reflect them. We need to focus that. And then need to talk about some actions and what is gone wrong, what is gone right, and what we need to do more, and maybe focus themes around what we really should do to eliminate or maybe enhance what we are the topic that we are focusing on. In that case, this particular special day that we are talking about women in as a whole, and also a theme around breaking the bias. That could be because there are biasness already. The reason is you can't avoid biasness because we are all humans, right? Even think about yourself as women. So you have biasness towards particular thing. We have biasness towards our country, our societies, our anything that we say like we attach to, right? And then we have at the end whole, so we have biasness to our humanity, right? So then we need to talk about these things in a particular context and a focus, and rest of the 363 days is for us to take actions, right? That's why it's very important this particular special day we focus a particular issue or a theme or a area that we need to further enhance, right? So that's why it's again special, and especially the Women's Day is very special because that's the area that we are not harnessing enough, and we need to think about how we can leverage that more, how we can get more inclusivity into our societies and our organizations and our countries, cultures, and beliefs and everything to maximize the potential that we have ahead of us. And at the end, so as I told you, so any day is very special because we need to really focus on what is ahead of us.
Okay, thank you, Thushera. So Ollie, what is your opinion on that?
Induni, thank you, and to Thushera and ADL, thank you so much for having me part of the celebration today. You know, I've had engagements with Thushera and Zeenath a lot, but just chatting with all of you just gives me a different context. You know, International Women's Day for me is on 2 parts, yeah? On the part of Axiata, it gives us a galvanizing point. And those of you who are on the Axiata group-wide chat, we are sharing so many of the best practices that can be replicated. And the consistency that I'm seeing across the group of appreciating how do we build an inclusive culture. And therefore, an inclusive culture, as you know, has many dimensions. But we take an opportunity today, the gender equality, the gender equity. And I think you have to give some pause to time because we tend to get very busy, right? And they say, oh, diversity, inclusive, and we're trying to meet the numbers. It may seem a small matter, but to me, it's a big one because it represents the people that we can bring to our organization. So celebrating IWD for me personally means that the gender that I'm part of, the other half of the sky, as the Chinese saying go, plays a part in society as well as in commercial businesses. And above all, I think both Thushera and Zeenath talked about is this is really celebrating allyship. I would love to celebrate International Men's Day with equal pomp. But we also need the men to galvanize and say, how do we celebrate the International Men's Day? But that's why it's called Women of Axiata and Male Allies. The male allies, such as Thushera, is really, really so key. So to also highlight that the women that we are celebrating holds multiple roles in one sitting, right? So these are the women that work in Thushera's world, but we are also mothers, we are daughters, granddaughters. And so the complexity of roles, which is then layered by the society expectations. Different countries have different norms where women play a role. And then it's really the break the bias one is of special meaning to me because I once gave a talk, it says about unconscious bias. And I said that we all have unconscious bias. If we are going to be biased, let's be positively biased because bias is how your brain processes and segments information. It's how can we take that unconscious bias that is discriminatory and break it. So to me, I think we need to celebrate as we need to celebrate the good things in life. And I think having diversity in the workplace and in society is a big one. That's why for me, IWD is a great day for us to celebrate. Back to you, Induni and Liara.
Okay, thank you very much, Ollie, for the amazing answer, and Thushera as well. Okay, Thushera, this goes to you. As a man, do you think the industry attaches a stereotype to female engineers? And if so, what could we do to break it?
I think regardless of it's a man or a woman, so stereotyping you can't eliminate, right? And stereotyping is there. And so that's why, why the stereotyping is there is because it simplify our society and the work, the things that we do, because people want to avoid thinking, too much processing. That's the first instinct. It doesn't mean that the humans are unable to do that. But just to avoid that, the complex processing, you just stereotype. Okay, when you see a thing or a person or a type of thing, you say, okay, this is what it is. That's a simplification perspective. The humans are, or maybe people love to simplify things or maybe start to generalize things. That's where it starts. And then when you look at a female, as you have a particular stereotype. When you look at a men, you have a particular stereotype. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, right? So there are good stereotypes and there are bad stereotypes. Now, how to avoid that? First thing is we need to aware that there's a stereotype, right? So then we need to understand, okay, when we see a women in engineering, so heavy mechanical or machinery work is females are unable to do because what you see in industry, you have seen less of the females are in that industries. Then you stereotype. It's very easy to stereotype that, okay, women are unable to do those kind of jobs. Only way that you can eliminate that is to having a critical mass. That's why I love the initiatives like this, the bringing more women into these kind of decision making, the leadership type of works areas, and making the men's allies to actually kind of supporting that, right? So first, eliminate the awareness. Oh, sorry. So increase the awareness of that. Okay, there are stereotypes. So we need to accept there are stereotypes, and then we need to understand how to create a critical mass to maybe eliminate that stereotyping, right? And the other thing is we as say women, or maybe you as women, we need to think about how to start from even your childhood. I know maybe for your, maybe the girl in your family, what you buy as a gift for your birthday present is not the same thing that you buy for your boy, right? Maybe you might buy a mechanical set for your boy and maybe a Barbie doll for your girl. So that's where you start your stereotyping, right? So I think, is there a way that you can break that barrier? So it's not easy. First thing is because it's that's how the brains are wired, regardless of it's men and women. We need to first understand and make sure that we create a little bit of awareness. That's why these kind of sessions, these kind of special days are very important, that we have our reflections around what is known, and accept there's a problem. Second, we create a critical mass. That's why, again, we have a mandate. I think we, even at our SLT meetings, we look at the male-female ratios. Are we at least maintaining our female ratio, or maybe are we heading towards a particular ratio that we want to maintain? So that's actually, it is a conscious effort, right? So we need to consciously, we need to talk about that. And again, finally, we need to think about, is there anything that special we need to do? That's where I think it's very important, you as a group, or maybe we have very powerful women at ADL. Are there anything that we need to do specifically to kind of get more people, the more women engineers into the organization, more women leaders into the organization? And then anything that is blocking, we need to eliminate that, because we are there to support and we are fully supportive of these initiatives, right? Because we understand the value of the diversity, right? Yeah, Indani.
Okay.
Thanks, sure.
Okay, great. Amazing. Okay, Liara.
Okay. So my next question is for Ollie. So we talked about, Thushera talked about stereotypes that exist. Have you ever been in a situation where you've thought being a woman and having power were like incompatible concepts?
I think, let's put it this way, there's been passing situations where I believe, where it was like, it did not seem that it could coexist, right? So somebody would say, oh, you won't be able to walk the corridors of certain organization because you're not a man, because the other men in power will not listen to you, right? So I've been in that, it's a bit of an interesting conversation, but actually in that instance, another man spoke up and said, why can't she walk the corridors of influence? Why don't we make her successful that she's heard? So I'm just sharing with you because there is an acknowledgement. I was quite fortunate that I worked for the most part with multinationals, where to be discriminatory was, I think, overtly wrong. But it doesn't mean that it does not exist. When I was, a risk manager and I was covering South Africa and the countries for sovereign risk, and then one of my colleagues says, you can't imagine Ollie traipsing down to those countries, right, with her 6-inch heels, you know? I'm like saying, are you thinking that I don't know how to change from heels to boots when I'm going to a swampy area, if it was swampy area? And also, that person was actually also discriminating other societies. Do you think every country is backward? So, there is that generalization that they called it the intersectionality. There are many biases that happens at the same time, right? So yes, I have been in situations. Perhaps in some instances I was less vocal, but in other instances I'm absolutely vocal, and that's the confidence that you get to create, to call out politely, and sometimes less politely, depending how aggravated I feel or the situation is, right? Because it's just not about women's rights. It is about human rights and respect for another individual. It's, so I wanted to say that we have to say that power and women can be synonymous, just as power and men can be synonymous. The power of my influencing skills may be just as powerful, the power of a man to dictate, right? And I think these are the various levers that we need to play, because I believe that men maximizing on their strengths and women maximizing on our strengths just create a tremendous force if we respect each other.
That is so true, Ollie. And I know I've been in situations where I've thought, well, I can't say anything. I'm just a little girl. And it takes time and experience to be like, no, I'm not just a little girl. I am a person with my own experiences and I can stand up for myself. I don't know about you, Anthony. I'm sure you felt that as well.
Yeah, of course. Like if I'm to talk about this topic, actually, I have a lot of experience to tell during my career journey as well. So I think Molly covered most of it actually. Like she gave us the like very prominent line of the information. Okay, the next question is going to be an interesting question with a bit of a personal touch. Okay, Ollie, as a mom, wife, and the chief people officer in Axiata, how do you stay focused and successful?
Firstly, I'm very fortunate, Induni, that each of those components appreciate what I stand for. You know, it's like sometimes when my husband is saying something that's like, oh, it's not politically correct, my wife is going to beat me up, so he realizes it. So I'm never challenged. I've always said I'm going to be a career woman. So the first junction of my life is to marry a man who would appreciate that I don't have to have this argument. So that's already my natural balances. My children have been brought up to understand that balance. But you know what I wanted to bring up here when I was talking about my husband there is the use of language is not to be underestimated when we're driving diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I know some of my colleagues, if they were in AGB, and it's very simple. Like everybody says, good morning, guys. I'm like, what about good morning, gals? How come you just say good morning, guys? You know, and then I will have a male, and then, or they use the word, oh, in this professional fraternity. I'm like, why not sorority? Right? I know, and some people say, Ollie, you're being pedantic. And I say, you can say I'm being pedantic because you are not the marginalized group, nor are you the minority, right? And I wanted to go back because I was very fortunate in HSBC when they were driving diversity, equity, and inclusion. All of us, especially the managers, had to go through language training. And we talk about communication being the most important thing to drive change management. So perhaps a simple thing like that may go a long way. And I know, for example, the millennials and the Xenders, my daughter will tell me, and I don't know what this word really means. She says, Mom, it's not woke. Okay, I got to pull back. What is my language? So therefore, diversity and agenda. So when you talk about a mom, a mother, so I'm very conscious about how I interact and how I engage with them as they are. It's a two-way street. I also believe that women try to be super women and we burn ourselves. Why? Anybody in the ecosystem that we function in should carry equal weight on the aggregate. Some days I carry more, some days my husband carry more, and someday I say, even my boss, Dato' Izzari, will carry more because I need the support. But it's because it is an organization that is driven by compassion that I am very hopeful that this agenda will be driven further. That's my balancing act.
Wow, Ollie, thank you so much for sharing that. But you know how that question is almost always only asked of women? So I'm going to flip it around to Thushera and say, Thushera, as a father and a husband and a man, how do you stay focused and successful?
Okay. It's very interesting. So I think in my sometimes when we talk about this the biasness or the gender and everything, sometimes it puzzles me. Am I hearing the right thing? Because in my mind, instinctively, I don't differentiate. So it could be a woman, it could be a man, whatever. But I feel everybody's equal, and everybody has a respect. Everybody has its own dignity, right? even at home is I give that respect and the more like a due respect to the things that what she does and what I do, right? In that case, there's no conflict. And then it's at the end it's a human, right? So we need to think as a human. That's a great way to kind of generalize. I sometimes I hate generalization, but when you generalize into a human, I think most of the problems get resolved. So then you don't attach any of this specialization like the gender, your beliefs, your language, your culture, whatever it is eliminated, right? So those are like the artificially attached bad um, bad stuff in some places. Right. Yeah.
Okay, Thushera, thank you very much for that answer to both of you. That actually gives us some idea about your personal thoughts as well and how you carry out your day-to-day stuff. Uh, okay, now this next question that I'm going to ask, actually we touched upon this, but I want to highlight this once again. So Thushera, in your opinion, why is it more important that women take up more engineering careers, and what could men do in promoting gender equality?
Okay, so if I ask a question, maybe I know, maybe I might not get an answer. What is US percentage of women's in engineering? It's somewhere around 20%. And Indonesia has the highest, which is 48%. But when you look at in a stereotype perspective, you think America should be having more and Asian countries will have less. Even if at all that matters, India has highest in South Asia other than Indonesia. It's about close to 30%, better than US, better than Europe. And so that's why I think sometimes you have some stereotypes, and then you think these jobs are largely not for Asian women, right? But it's completely opposite when you look at the reality, right? And I think women also underestimate what the power that you have. The reason is this: men's are largely the left brain wired, and women's are largely the both left and right brain properly balanced, right? What does it mean? It's actually it's let us have a bigger picture view and the balanced view. Men will be using more data to analyze and take decision, rather women take both data and emotions to tie this together. And now look at this particular prominent women in the world in IT. Ada Lovelace. Who is that? First computer programmer in the world who created the Charles Babbage's general purpose computer. Then she realized this general purpose, which is used for only the calculations, that's how men are wired, can be used to do the programming and application development or application usage. That's where then the Ada actually created that general purpose, the logically driven computer concept into a larger application language, right? Who's Grace Hopper? She's the one who invented COBOL language. This has been used for many years for many commercial softwares, right? Who's Hedy Lama? You guys will be surprised. She's the inventor of Wi-Fi, right? So in 1942, she patented a called a secret communication system, which led to creating this Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth, and all of these the communication protocols, right? So then again, think about who's the Adele Goldberg, inventor of Smalltalk, who invented the GUIs and which created the pave to create Apple first ever Apple computer, right? So then if you look at those, the women, they have my hypothesis that the left brain versus balanced hemisphere, the brain, the female have the balanced hemisphere brain, right? And again, think about the internet mother. I think she doesn't want to call herself a mother of internet, but I think Radia, right? Radia is invented the STP protocol, which is a peer-to-peer communication protocol, is create the pave the way to create the internet, right? Again, think about who I think Elizabeth. Elizabeth originate of search engine, which is a prehistoric Google. I mean, if you look at the women are the pillars in IT or a software engineering. So no doubt, I think there can't be any argument on that. So I think the same thing. Okay, there's another point I missed. The Grace, the who created the COBOL, she's the first woman to record the bug. Now you know again why female are actually good at more like the secret services, Ollie.
I'll take
Right?
it, Thushera. I'll take it.
Exactly. The reason is it's not only the logic that matters, right? It's also logic that matters. What matters is using the rest of the connected areas is what matters. So you see a data, and then you need to think about where it's coming from, why it's coming from. All of these things actually women are good at. So this has a curiosity mind, right? So that's what actually is creating a careers for in IT. And IT is another fantastic the field for women because it doesn't require the physical strength, right? Like in other engineering disciplines. And you can use your fantastic brain power, this balanced hemisphere brain, to go on your careers and advance more in careers. I love to see more female architects, more female leaders, more engineers coming into our field, right? So the career is actually, I think IT, if at all, I think Oli, by the way, I think maybe most of you don't know, Oli was a computer programmer, right?
Yes, I know.
And so look, I mean, so female has a fantastic opportunity, and we are here. I'm a promoter of female engineers, especially IT, and I have created so many female architects in my previous organization, specifically during programs to kind of create those female architects because I saw the value because they bring multiple different perspective. This balance, the brain profile gives a big picture view. Rather, we might see a in a one side, rather they see a the bigger picture. That's what this Ada told us, right? And that's what the Grace Hopper told us. That's what Hardy Lamar told us. All of these, the best inventors in this our field, gave us a good examples of why females have to be in this field more, right? So there's no doubt that female has a better career in IT, better career in this engineering disciplines. We need more of you coming in, doing some stuff, and be vocal. As Oli said, when you see a maybe discrimination, biasness, or anything, that you should just voice it out, right? And then we are here to kind of create a framework, opportunities, and also a platform for you to rise.
Wow, that is very educational as well. And let's hope all the men out there to have the same mindset as Thushera.
Yes, please. But we do know that there are skeptics out there that do discount women. So, to Ollie, what would you say to these skeptics when they say, why do we need to have more women in leadership?
You know, Liara, I think there's too much literature already out there on research that talks about having women as another element of diversity to just bring better solutions. If you will permit me, I do want to pick up on to some of Thushera's point because we are Axiata and you are ADL. And Thushera, I stand humbled by the fact that you have articulated so many women role models in this field. Do you know one of the things that Dato asked me to do, and he says, Ollie, I'm looking for Norlida, and he calls me Norlida, right? Doesn't call me Ollie. He says, Norlida, I'm looking for you to find for me a female group chief technology officer, a female group CIO, and I'm like, OMG, right? For you to get to that level, I need to bring a pool of people, the women who will have the confidence. And Thushera, I salute your words, and I think the women of ADL, you're very privileged. If the tone from the top already calls for it. Liara, skeptics may not have a place in our kind of organization because it brings back to me what is more important than even diversity. Axiata, because we're in various footprints, right? We have that natural diversity of ethnicity, and you count in most of our companies 50-50 and all this thing. I want to bring about the importance of equity far more than diversity. Equity is us providing access for a wider pool of people that will include men and women to be successful. So a lot of the statistics of university graduates could show high numbers of women in this field, even in Malaysia. And then somewhere along the line, they drop off, right? So, and what happens is when women take a break and then they come back, they get penalized. They go like, oh my G, 2 years away from work. Does she even know what's moving in the world? Excuse me, when you're taking two years back, you are still hearing the news. We're all digitally connected. The woman is not living in a cave. Do you know what I mean? So how do we, when they ask, how do we promote this? If it's a caregiving where it falls on the women, okay, but give us back equal footing when we come back, when we demonstrate that ability. And I think this is where, because I'm in the human capital function, is do we change the way we manage talent such that it is totally inclusive and not just frameworks and words. That's why when you talk about the skeptics, I think it's going to be very difficult because increasingly, as we move to skills-based and not role-based, it's going to be agnostic of gender. It's to have the courage to deliver for the organization. That's why I'm very excited that in this digital space, like Thushera has pointed out, is really building about the skills. And I urge all women in here, build up your skills, get to be as good is not better than anybody. And you say, boss, Thushera, give me that opportunity, make me a chief architect. You know what I mean? So come not because we are women, but come because we are capable women. And then it becomes a no-brainer, right? Some things you cannot win because of politics or anything else. But I always say, women, build your skills, build your experience, heighten up your confidence. And that's it, is the world is ours to be part of, not conquer. I hate to say conquer because I do like the male companionship, because a man, like what Thushera says, that left brain sometimes needs to balance us out, right? It's a world of balance, and that's what we stand for. Back to you, ladies.
Okay, that is a very, very strong statement. So, okay, now we are going to go for a fun round. So again, this is for both of you. Okay, if you could go back in time when you were 18 years old, what would you say to that version of you? Thushera?
Okay, this is like going back too far to 18 years.
You're younger than me, Thushera, no excuse.
Okay, I think so at that time you are maturing. So I would say yes. I think how we look at the world is not how we see today, right? We see everything's revolving around me, and so I'm more capable, or maybe I know everything. Right now, then it's this complete shift and saying, so everybody else around me knows more than me. So that actually is a great, and so if I was at that time, I could have learned much more than I learned at that time.
Cool. Ollie, what could you say about it?
Knowing where I am right now in this digital telco, I should have taken my bachelor's of computer science to become a master's and work for Thushera today.
Wow.
That's what I would say to myself right now.
Oh, that was brilliant. I love that. All right, to both of you, final question. What is one important message that you'd want to give young women thinking about their careers today? Thushera?
Yeah, so as I told you, again, so we need to reboot. First, I think mindset, we need to change our mindset, take a step back, reboot ourselves, right? As a women, you are much stronger. As I told you, we have enough case studies, examples why women are superior to in male brains, right? I think the fact is sometimes the stereotypes, biasness, the cultures, and all of these things sometimes some of these capabilities and opportunities. So let's take a mindset reboot and start believing you are much more capable than what you think, and you are. Believe me, you are, because how the women's brains are wired in that way. So the women has a much resiliency than men, right? And they can persevere much better than men, right? And they can come out of a situation much stronger than men. And in even some of the studies, as Ollie said, there are enough statistics. It says if there's a board member, the female board member in a company, chances of failure are 80% low, 80% lower than chances of failing the startups. What does it mean? They see much bigger things, bigger picture, as I told you, because of that, how the brain is wired. And so there's a quote again, earlier you said, maybe Sina said, girls are capable of doing everything men are capable of doing. That's, as I told you, understand that first. Sometimes they have more imagination than the men. This is quoted by Katherine Johnson, who's a NASA mathematician, a very well regarded person. So then we need to start believing ourselves, believing yourselves, and think about that. And as I told you, we only have a implicit biasness, not the explicit bias. Explicit biasness is dangerous, and definitely you should walk out if you see anything explicit biasness, right? So there's because you can't fix that anyway. So implicit biasness, it's for us to fix it, and then let's make a step. And today is a good discussion. Then maybe reflect some of the things, take some messages as women, as men. So we'll work together at ADL. We are creating the culture environment with the support of the group HR like Oli, good proponent and also supporter. So let's use that opportunities and make a nicer, better environment, because you are capable of doing anything that men can do.
Oh, thank you very much for that, Thushera. It's really comforting to know like what a feminist you are. And Ollie, what is one message that you'd give young women looking at their careers?
It's quite similar to what Thushera said. It's like have a very open mindset that you want to hear divergent viewpoints, because that will really enrich us, and therefore have the corresponding adaptable behavior. And I think that's very, very important. And I want to draw that back to the fact that people always say women can multitask well. So why not leverage it to wherever it can be, right? You multitask, you have an open mind, and you can do all these things. Society and organizations place a lot of expectations of a woman in the workplace. Sometimes we forget to have fun. We're running home to cook, we're running home to clean the house, or here, try not to volunteer to always do coffee, okay? Everybody has got legs, they can go to the coffee or the water cooler, all right? So don't fall into these very traditional behaviors, because you are perpetuating and reinforcing very what I call sexist behaviors, right? I'm going to call it out as it is. Sometimes it's hard. It is your natural self, and somebody says, can I have water? You want to help. But then you say, oh my God, it's always the woman who's going to that. So you hold it to the table and you sit there, somebody else also got two legs. But sometimes it's okay, but just don't let it become a habit. So you must have have that courage to stand up for some of these issues, have an open mind, and above all, do have fun, because life's too short, as the pandemic has shown us. Is really to embrace change and embrace it with conviction, courage, and fun. I wish all of you great success, both personally and professionally.
Thank you so much, Ollie. That was wonderful. And we've all needed to hear that as women. It's okay to sit back and let somebody else get coffee. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute privilege to have you and hear from you and share all your wisdom. Thushera, thank you so much. I just feel so good as a woman working for you that you have our back. Thank you. And thank you to Indani for moderating this with me, and for Zeenath for that wonderful opening introductory note. Thank you, everyone. Thank you everyone who joined today and listened and took time out of your day I hope you've learned so much from this. I know I have. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ali.
Thank you, everybody. Happy International Women's Day and month.
Thanks, everyone.